I was saying something in the last week. It covered the SpaceX launch. I watched it. I had mentioned that debris had fallen. I had made a comment about the ship itself, the debris crashing, and it was actually way over the ocean. So most of that, I'm sure, all fell into the ocean. Probably landed on a shrimp boat or two. Maybe that'd be kind of funny. Someone who deserved it. But there had been, when I said that though, I had seen some reports about debris just initially because I recorded on the same day as the explosion last week. And so, but what really went on was that the launch pad was not proper at all. They didn't do, normally they do a like the Saturn V. So this Starship launch was compared to the Saturn V, the previous holder for the world's strongest, biggest launch vehicle. Although I don't know if that's absolutely correct. There might have been a few things recently, but Saturn V is what took the astronauts to the moon. Amazing stuff. There's some really cool documentaries about that. Just an unbelievably powerful machine. Really great series called The Wonders of the Universe or Wonders of Science or something like that. Well, anyway, the presenter is this British guy named Brian Cox, who does these. I like the way he does like space documentaries, space TV shows, where he walks around it and kind of explains the gigantic, engines, these huge thrusters, how much fuel.
This is the spacecraft that took John Young, Ken Mattingly and Charlie Duke to the moon. So this is the 120-ton moon spacecraft, if you like. And this is stage 2. And that is the stage 2 fuel tank. Inside there are 450 tons of rocket fuel. And this burned through those 450 tons in about 6 minutes. Taking the spacecraft from an altitude of 200,000 feet, 38 miles, up to 114.5 miles. That's virtually in orbit. And it did that by burning the fuel in 5 engines. Now, at the time, that was one of the most powerful rockets ever built. But not the most powerful. That was this, stage 1 of the Saturn V. There are 2,200 tons of fuel in here, and stage 1 burnt through that in about 2.5 minutes. To do that, it had fuel pumps that were more powerful than a 747 at liftoff, to pump 15 tons of fuel a second into these, the F1 engines.
I think at one point during the Saturn V launch, it's getting something like 5 inches a gallon is its rate of speed. Like it's burning through fuel so fast, it's just like 5 inches. It's like literally that much, twice the length of my wiener. And the strength of the Starship launch was like, I think twice, or it's much bigger than what the Saturn V was. The Saturn V was just this immense thing because it has to launch a second rocket up. That is the second stage release. So there's like, it's a rocket on top of a rocket, and the heavier things get, the bigger it has to become. It's sort of it's like a runaway exponential thing. But as part of that, they build these launch pads to have this fire mitigation system. In fact, here, let's got a YouTube video here. This is from Mech Design TV, launch ignition simulation for NASA Space Launch Systems. Visualization by NASA Supercomputing Center. So you just kind of see this kind of cool heat map of all the stuff going down, and it blasts it out, but they also use water to cool it all off. So a lot of that big white cloud that comes off of space launches you've seen is steam from the engines producing all this heat and exhaust that then gets mitigated into the water system. So that they have like these launch pads are complex. They have these water tanks and these pumps, and they have to flood it at just the right moment. Then light the candle and then let the thing go off, and so that they're not doing what SpaceX did. So it's a good example of what went wrong. I do have the videos picked up, but they're going to be out of. Yeah, I'm going to have to change that. So this is a Reuters headline: Debris blast from SpaceX rocket launch renews environmental questions. That's right. This is by Steve Gorman, April 27, Reuters. While the spectacle of SpaceX's new Starship rocket blowing up over the Gulf of Mexico riveted the public's attention, it was the explosive nature of the launch at ground level that was drawing heightened scrutiny from the government this week. The shattering force of last Thursday's launch in South Texas sent a cloud of pulverized concrete raining over a small town nearby, federal regulators said, raising fresh questions about the environmental impact of ramped up launch operations at the site. The blast off from the SpaceX facility adjacent to a national wildlife refuge near Boca Chica Beach also hurled large chunks of concrete and metal thousands of feet and ignited a 3.5-acre fire on nearby grounds. Damage to the launch pad, the floor of which was largely demolished during liftoff, was visible in photos of the aftermath. No one was hurt, and no dead birds or wildlife were found on lands owned or managed by the refuge. That's because the birds got turned into ashen powder and they disappeared into the wind, or they flew away. There was also videos of people's like houses. Like there's limits on noise. You're supposed to like people like over 3 miles away with their windows rattling. So yeah, environmentalists seized on the report as evidence that a more in-depth study of potential hazards to public safety and wildlife should be conducted before further Starship launches are conducted at Boca Chica. Yeah, so that's a mess. Here's some video of it. This is a Starship test flight. I think this is footage from Starship or from SpaceX themselves. Okay, that's after. Let's not. Why are we watching the after one first? Here's the one that I've been seeing a bunch of. There's a white van. This is 2 minutes long. But watch the white van. It's got some camera equipment mounted up on it. So in the lower left corner, we've got kind of a circular shot here. It's ready to go. History in the making. One of the world's dumbest, most annoying people is having his dreams come true. His dream of accelerating the destruction of land for profits. But here it comes. Big boom. Keep your eye on the white van. As concrete is now being launched at tremendous speeds. Boom. Something just like rips through it. That is crazy. Watch this. One more time. White van. Smash. Damn. That's some VFX artist react stuff right there, man. Yeah, so we got all these like impacts of debris and stuff flying everywhere. Crap flying into the camera. Pretty cool. Good special effect. I'm just scrubbing through it right now. Big wind hits the tree. That's kind of fun. Always love a palm tree fighting off some wind. This isn't supposed to happen. This is a very sloppy, cutting costs, cutting corners. I think there's some commentary from Elon Musk about we didn't have time or some bullshit. Here's a shot of the people notice that if you keep your eye on the ocean here, that you see all these impacts of stuff just impacting. So we've got a big cloud rolling off the left side, but then you start seeing all these like little white splashes in the ocean of a whole bunch of them. Just a bomb. I mean, a space launch is basically a bomb. It is a controlled explosion. That's why they blow up when they're not done well. And then here is just like a shot of a bunch of the wreckage and stuff. So lots of engineering needs to happen to make this thing safe. It's doable. It's not completely unlikely. But they clearly crossed a bunch of lines and are creating a whole bunch of problems. This is the launch pad itself. Massive devastation, a giant crater. That's the other thing, though, is that it's thought that, if you recall the launch, I don't think I have a video of that, but the array of all the different little engines that were lit up, they're actually quite big. They're called the Raptor engines. They weren't all on. Now, some of that might have been on purpose, but it's thought that there's a very decent chance that the impact, the crater, the explosion at the launch pad that was not protected could have caused damage to those things. Even though with all the force coming out of the rocket, you're still not mitigating all that force properly. So it's very plausible that something bounced up and got its way into the very complex dynamic physics happening right beneath the rocket and damaged one of those things. So that would have to be fixed. Yeah. I didn't transition it over. Damn it. Okay, there it is. So pretty sloppy. Pretty sloppy stuff. Here's a futurism article. Debris rains down on protected wildlife after Starship explosion. And then the subhead is, there's a price to pay. It's kind of so funny that. Here, let's listen.
Debris rains down on protected wildlife after Starship explosion.
She didn't say.
SpaceX's first orbital Starship
Are you
launch
kidding me?
attempt
I wanted that lady's voice saying there's a price to pay. I was going to use that as a drop. Here's just the first sentence.
saw the most powerful rocket ever built soar to epic new heights. But before the behemoth spacecraft could make it into orbit, it started tumbling uncontrollably through the sky.
Skipping ahead.
With most pristine shorebird habitat, with the American Bird Conservancy warning last summer that SpaceX's continued efforts in the area to develop its Starship will continue to harm endangered birds. As Texas Public Radio reported earlier this week, just 2 days before the latest explosion, SpaceX is doing considerable damage to the nesting habitats, like leaving behind destructive ATV tracks and giant pieces of blown-up Starship prototypes that are littering algae flats, important feeding grounds.
I mean, that sounds like a Mandalorian set, just like wrecked spaceship parts and stuff. I've seen SpaceX facilities, believe it or not. When I had a job driving Teslas for 5 weeks. I thought I was going to have a job for longer than that, but it was this company that gave rides in Teslas, sort of like a mix between a Uber and a train station. It was like designated drop-offs and stuff. But yeah, I had this job, and one of the places in LA where you go to recharge your Tesla for free at one of the superchargers is at the SpaceX facility. I think it's in Hawthorne. That's where their headquarters is, I believe. And you just drive right into it. You have to drive past their factory, and there's like cones of rockets and shit just like sitting out on pallets. There's all kinds of people walking around, people on bikes to get to this Tesla spot. And then there's like these bays for the Tesla things. So I've seen some of this. Not that I'm some expert on it. It was interesting. I mean, I was kind of intrigued by it. I want to hear her say this word here. It's a PLOVER.
Having that mini plovers half a mile from this launch pad sending off the largest rockets known to mankind right now really makes you wonder what's going to happen to those guys for sure, just on the local environment. And that's a big price to pay, especially considering the simple fact that the rocket could have been developed in a way that didn't involve countless explosions, as NASA's Space Launch System goes to show. Besides, it didn't have to happen in the middle of a wildlife sanctuary.
All right.
More on the launch.
Hold on. Settle down. Yeah, nailed it. Thanks, lady. Thanks for taking some of the work off my shoulders here. Yeah, so they fucked it all up. They did a whole bunch of stupid stuff. They cut corners. They didn't want to, it should be embarrassed by it, but it'll just be another one of those. Well, that's what happened. Here's a tweet that it shows some of the sand that got blasted all over the place. I wonder if it caused like scratching damage or something. People are gathering up all this sand, and it might have like chemicals and shit radiated into it, or I don't know, radiated, but who knows? I don't know. What the hell? This is another look at some of the debris. I think I just used that one to find. And Spaceflight Now has live coverage. This is just a kind of a blog of some of the damage and stuff. There's the this thing there. So okay, cool. Well done, Hank. CNBC. That's where I get all my space news. SpaceX Starship explosion spread particulate matter for miles. Yeah, here we go. The environmental engineers and advocates are concerned that the ash and sand-like particulate matter could hurt people's respiratory health and could irreparably harm endangered species in the area. I mean, that's the future we're like. If humanity, if climate change doesn't force us all into the necessary, like, violent overthrow of the economic system, because it's going to change how food is produced and distributed, we could build out a society with proper like space launch abilities, and it would still mean consumption, though. It still mean using up land, but there's ways to do this stuff that respects people, respects wildlife, but you're going to be using some of it no matter what. You're just planting a footprint down. But there's like a kind of a nightmarish version of this, though, where we're still going to follow through. We're still going to be able to produce a lot of this technology for decades more. I don't think the warlordism is going to necessarily kick off for those of us listening to this right during our lifetimes. But I just see this horror of all of it, which is that pollution is distance. We just hurt people for, I don't want to say, I hesitate to say greater projects or something like that, but we are okay with the damage that much of our economic world and our economic activity causes, because it's only hurting people with no political power. The residents of these communities that were doing fine before SpaceX showed up, the environmental devastation of all the pollution and the testing and the rocket testing and all the misfires and all that stuff, our over reliance on fucking cars. There's been some stories I've been seeing in the news lately about that. But I'm just picturing it being like a more developed society, though. But we're still just going to have these areas of sacrifice zones, where we are just going to allow that to be something, which we probably, would be doing no matter what kind of economic system we had, in a way, based on all the waste that we produce, nuclear waste, plastic waste, landfills, such and whatever else. So yeah, it's pretty dumb, pretty ugly stuff.